acknowledge that this is being recorded, and you've asked me to record it.
Okay, thank you.
Is that
Yeah, that works.
okay?
All right. So first of all, thank you so much for wanting to sit down with me for this interview. Again, my name is Aleisha Robinson. I'm the editor in chief of the Spokesman. I'm also a senior multimedia journalism major with a minor in political science. So thank you.
Are you graduating in May?
I am.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Okay. So I've read the piece that Morgan put out about wanting to give you an honorary degree. But I think I wanted to go a little bit deeper into it and just ask you a couple questions about who you are, your background, your upbringing, and all of that. Just Morgan just gave us like a brief thing, but I believe that there's more to know about you. I've read a couple things, but I've just jotted down a few questions that I wanted to ask. So first of all, um, you have a life and career that stretches across journalism, like Morgan put on their website: journalism, advocacy, education, and history. Um, Before we get deeper into your work, I want to start by asking you who you are. Like, if you look in the mirror right now, um, you're looking back at the person. Who's that person? Like, who are you aside from all your accolades?
I am the child who grew up as an orphan in a uh, housing project in South Baltimore, in a community called Cherry Hill. I'm a kid who learned to read and loved to read when I was in the second grade, and reading has been for me the the window through which I view the world, and excited me about the possibilities of learning.
And journalism, how did you get involved with that? How did that come about? Why did you choose that out of all the other, I guess, majors you could have gone?
So I'm not really. It wasn't a conscious decision so much as it was something that grew naturally out of reading. To be a journalist, to be a good journalist, to be someone other than just a note taker, uh, you have to have a tremendous sense of curiosity. To be curious about things, and curiosity for me uh, was spawned by my interest in reading. I was initially read to at a library in Baltimore City when I was in the second grade, and we would go after school to the library, and there was a librarian there who would read to children, and so that kind of got my interest in knowing more about things around me and things far beyond my life experience at that time. And so I think it was just kind of a natural evolution that eventually, when I had the chance and to make a decision about a life path, I chose to continue to feed my curiosity by becoming a journalist.
Yeah, and to talk a little bit more about your upbringing, um, I read here that you lost both your parents at the age of 8.
Hmm.
How has that shaped anything in your life? Like, is that your motivation? Is that what you use to keep going every day?
Uh, I think the impact that it had on me was that guarded about relationships, and very determined to rise above my condition.
Yeah.
And so I was always trying to be better than I was at any moment, and better than people thought that I might be.
I also read here that you were working as a caddy at an all-white Jewish country club.
Yeah,
What was that experience like?
it was a great experience because I made a lot of money, relatively speaking. I mean, it wasn't a lot of money by today's standards, but when I was 13, 14 years old, I'd go out there, and during the course of an entire week, I would come home with $100. And $100 back in the 1960s, I didn't know an adult male in my community who made that kind of money. So it was a lot of money. It was hard work. I'd go out on a bus. We'd leave about 5 o'clock in the morning, and in the summertime we wouldn't get back to about 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. But I walked into the little community in which I live with sometimes $22 in my pocket, and I could have bought the whole town. I mean, I was just it was uplifting. I spent a lot of time not having anything, a lot of time trying to figure out how to get money to even for bus fare to go to school. We didn't have public buses to take us to school, school buses. And so to get to school, you had to catch the public transportation. And I didn't have the money, and it was 15 cents if you were a school kid. And I didn't have 15 cents for the one-way fare to get to school. It was many days like that. So when I was able to go to the country club and make money, it turned my life around in many ways. But it also, listen, I had to make a choice. Did I go to school or did I go to the country club to make the money? And more often than not, early on, I chose to go to Woodhome to make the money, to put some clothes on my back, to put some food in my stomach, and ultimately to take a bus to school.
And at what point did you say, okay, let me join was it the U.S. Air Force? At what point did you say
Yeah,
that?
yeah. So I lived in a different, I grew up in a different time. My girlfriend and I, she was my first girlfriend. And we were literally children. And being children, we didn't experiment with sex. We had sex. And in our first sexual encounter, she became pregnant. Very first time. And so I did what in those days, what guys did, what guys who thought they were honorable did. I found a way to take care of my child. And for me, that meant to go into the military because the military provided financial and other benefits for the dependent children of members of the military. And I did it, which meant that I left school and didn't finish high school. I left school at the 11th grade and went into the military and got my high school GED while I was in the service. Took a college GED course, not tests, series of tests, college GED tests while I was in the service, and then came out and went to a tertiary college, a college on the ground at the University of Maryland. So, yeah, that was the trip. That was a course I pursued.
And while you were in there, you got a Vietnam Service Medal and Good Conduct Medal.
Oh, I got a few medals, yeah, but they were medals that I guess if you were there, you earned them. I got a couple medals: Vietnam National Defense Medal, Vietnam Service Medal, and there was another Vietnam medal. But these are, if you went to Vietnam, I guess everybody got them. I don't know.
Would you recommend the U.S. Air Force to any young man today?
I recommend military service for anyone who opts not to go to college. I think it is a tremendous experience. Now, I'm saying that at a time when the military is in the hands of some people who who are probably not using it for the best purposes. But it certainly teaches discipline. It makes, I think, men, I think young men become better men. It was my experience, all the guys I went to the service with, we were all kind of wild and crazy. And we went in that way, but we came out very respectful of women, for instance. We treated women with a lot more respect than I see young men treating young women with today.
Yeah, but I guess what I want to know is what pushed you forward while you were in there. You were in there and you decided that, okay, I didn't finish high school. Let me get this. You decided you want to go to college. You found your love for reading. Like, Was there something in your life that kept you grounded, that was like a constant thing in your mind that just went off and you're just like, okay, I need to get this, I need to get going on this, I need to start doing this? Was there something?
I always wanted to be better. I always wanted to be better than I was at the moment. I always wanted my life to be better. And So I wasn't going to go out and stick up somebody because I knew that was stupid. And it was short term. You go out and rob somebody and get $100 or $500. You got $500. No, I wanted to improve my life in such a way that I could make uh, uh, a good salary and provide for myself and provide for my family. I just wanted to improve the condition of my life. And knowledge really is power. Knowledge is power. So the more knowledge we get, the more power we have to improve our circumstances.
Yeah, and to move on a little to your, again, back to your journalism career and your reporting history. Um, I've also read here that you went a Nelson Mandela's USA tour.
Hmm.
Talk to me about that. That sounds interesting.
So you're fast forwarding now into my journalism, but by this time I'm a journalist. I'm a columnist with USA Today. I'm one of fewer than 10 nationally syndicated columnists in the nation. So I'm sitting in a fairly unique position, and I'm working for the most widely circulated daily newspaper in the country at the time, USA Today. So when Nelson Mandela was released from prison and came to the U.S. To do a 10-city tour, everybody, I mean, turned out. I mean, there was just literally thousands of people flooded the streets of the city. His first stop in the U.S. was in New York City, and that's where I joined his entourage and was assigned to fly on the plane with him. And only 3 journalists on that plane. There were other journalists in his entourage, but they flew a second plane, or they had to get to wherever we were going on their own. But I was given the honor of being on the flight with him. We went to, as I said, to New York, to Detroit, to Washington, to Los Angeles, it was Chicago. It was an amazing opportunity to be next to living history. Um, to see him, even then, he was very kind of ramrod straight, but a little halting in his walk. His gait was a little halting. But it was like you were walking in the glow of some great life that would beyond death. I mean, you thought he was a superhero who was going to change the world. And I was, I mean, he certainly changed South Africa, and in many ways, I think he changed many other places as well in terms of his impact. He had a significant impact on global politics.
Was there any profound moments that was just like, wow, something that wasn't reported on, something that you experienced or you saw that just wasn't reported on about that whole tour and just being next to him?
Well, we were flying to Detroit one day, and he was sitting in first class, and I was a few seats behind him, and he was trying to put together his remarks. And at the time, Detroit was considered the murder capital of the United States. Had a very high death rate, homicide rate. And he wanted to deliver a message. And here's a guy who's been in prison for all these many years, 3 decades. But he had the consciousness of mind to say, I want to say something to these people from Marvin Gaye, because Marvin Gaye is Motown, Marvin Gaye is from Detroit, and Marvin Gaye had this song, What's Going On? And he wanted to use the opening words to the song, Mother, Mother, Father, Father, and the song is an appeal for an end to violence in the Black community. And I thought, how does he know this? But he wanted those words, and he didn't have those words. He was scrambling. As it turned out, the flight attendant, we were on a charter flight, a charter plane. It was a regular airline, but they had chartered this airline just for Mandela and his entourage. And the flight attendant on this plane had you don't know what this is, but in those days we had little cassettes. They were music cassettes. And she had the song on the cassette, and she played it for me. He got the words. And so I saw him then take the words down. And so then later I was at Tiger Stadium in Detroit that night when he gave the speech. And when he started to deliver those words, I just started beaming. I mean, because I knew it was coming, and you hear the way the people cheered him on when this man from South Africa, this man just out of jail from South Africa, came to Detroit and quoted Marvin Gaye, who at that time was a great icon of American music, but a son of Detroit and a son of Motown. That was, for me, the biggest moment of his tour.
Yeah, and you mentioned about, writing about the Black community and things that Black people face. Much of your writing has been on that.
Mm-hmm.
What's the stories like from there? Looking back from previous years to now, you're living in a generation, a year when, things are a little bit up and down and rocky. You're reporting from then to the reporting now. What are you seeing? You seen any changes? Anything?
This is the troubles of people of African descent in this country are older than the country. Older than the country. We're going to celebrate next year the 250th anniversary of the founding of the United States. That means we're going to date it back to 1776 and the Declaration of Independence. But 1776 was more than a century and a half after the first ship of enslaved Africans arrived on these shores. And the troubles that we've had as people of African descent have been continuous, up and down, but continuous. There were issues that I wanted to address when I had the opportunity. When I had that, someone once said about me that some critic, somebody who didn't like my columns, complained that I should not be allowed to write for USA Today because they said it was the most important, some of the most important territory in American journalism, being able to write for that paper. So, but I took advantage of it, as I think every opinion writer seeks to take advantage of the opportunity he or she has to put their voice into print. I did it, and I focused primarily on Black folks, for which I make no apology, because we never ask white columnists why they only write about white people. They would say, I don't just write about white people, I write about general issues. General issues, that's a euphemism for white people. But I think somebody has to be a voice of protest. Somebody has to be willing to stand up and to shout out. A good friend of mine always used to say, Black journalists need to regularly tell the truth. And if you get in trouble, tell the truth and duck, but tell the truth. We have too many journalists, Black and white, who are fearful of telling the truth, and they ought to go do something else because they're taking the spot of a truth teller. They ought to get out of the way and let a truth teller who wants to tell the truth step forward and tell the truth. Young journalists today should understand this is not a profession for the timid. It's not a profession for the meek. It's not a profession for people who just want to make a dollar. I just want to be on TV, or I just want to write, or I just want to be a producer. This is a profession that demands courage. it demands courage. You have to be courageous. And if you're not courageous and ready to speak the truth, you do a great disservice to the folks who come before us. So many Black journalists have suffered the ultimate, lost their lives, been brutalized, lost property, been chased. We talk about Ida B. Wells, but few people remember that before she became a great civil rights activist, she was a newspaper publisher who was chased from her newspaper, and her newspaper was burned to the ground, and she had to run for her life. But in running for her life, she was known to carry 2 pistols in her apron. She carried 2 pistols, and I don't mean a housewife apron, but the apron of a printing press. She was courageous, and there's so many others, Black women especially. Harriet Tubman, who brought so many Black folks to freedom. We need to talk about that and celebrate that. We don't do enough of it. Many of our civil rights leaders in the 20th century started off as journalists, like Roy Wilkins, who was for a long time the head of the NAACP, was a journalist, and so many others. So journalism is a profession for which we need to nurture courageous people who are strong-willed, strong backbone, and are willing to stand up and as I said, shout out. And this is really a time when we need people who have courage. If you're leaving college today or next year or the year after and entering the profession and you don't have courage, you need to wait Trump out and hope Trump doesn't take over, because he's threatening. People say he was not going to run for re-election. Well, he's threatening not to have another election. And who's going to call that out? Who's going to challenge that?
Yeah, I wanted to touch a little bit about your column days, the days when you were writing your column. But before I go to that, I want to stay a little bit on this topic. I've seen in this generation where journalists, or I think the word journalist and the meaning of a journalist, it might just be, I don't think the meaning of it, the people who want to be considered a journalist know what exactly it means. I see influencers acting like journalists. I see journalists not acting like journalists, but they have the title of journalists. They're not, I guess, if somebody is lying, or if the people higher ups are lying, they're not challenging that power. They're not challenging them to tell the truth. They're just reporting on what's happening, but they're not reporting with depth. For young journalists like myself, who we're about to graduate soon, how can we go into an industry where there are people we are supposed to look up to who aren't doing the jobs of journalists? We have to go back decades to people like you and, like you said, Ida B. Wells, to look back at how they report, to use that instead of using the people that we have right now, the people who are supposed to be teaching us. What do we do when, those people aren't doing what they're supposed to do?
Well, you have to work hard to find the best examples of courageous journalists. That's the first thing. Read a lot. Study who's come before you. Look around. There are some courageous journalists today. Look around and see if you can find out who they are. Be courageous, but also be smart. You should not be suicidal in your professional career. So, which is to say, don't throw it away on one question, or don't throw it away on challenging someone in a way that might end your career tomorrow. Be wise, be smart, and use your courage in a way that will allow you to continue to use your voice. And so then that's a game of juggling balls and figuring out how to approach these issues. Do not become a newsroom coward. Do not just say, well, you know what? I got a family. I've got a mortgage. I got a car payment. I'm not going to rock a boat. Well, okay, go get another job. Become a banker. Maybe you want to go sell cars, or Mary Kay, or whatever you might come up with as an idea Um, don't waste your time and take up the space that might otherwise be used by by a courageous journalist.
Yeah, and okay, let's shift back to your column days. When you were reporting, and like you said, there was somebody who mentioned something about your work and what you were reporting on and how you were writing it. How did you remain how did you keep your integrity intact? How did you make sure that when you're reporting, you're not really thinking about what people are going to say about this and the backlash you're going to get, but reporting on the truth and being an actual journalist? How
Yeah.
did you do that?
So one of the challenges is to work very hard on being the smartest person in the room. Knowledge. I keep saying knowledge is power. If you don't know much about anything, when people challenge what you do say, it's they'll back you down because you don't know how to defend yourself. So it is really important to be the smartest person in the room. You won't always be the smartest person in the room, but if you try it, if you work hard at it, most of the time, more often than not, you'll be the smartest person in the room. And so that means to constantly read, to constantly consume information, to just be out there working very hard to understand what it is you're talking about and what it is other people are talking about, uh, and um, and to try to figure out how to best position yourself to deal with these issues.
Yeah. And you are also a founding member and a past president of the National Association of Black Journalists. What moment or when did you realize that NABJ was needed? What moment did you say, okay, probably we need an organization like NABJ?
Yeah. December 1975, when we founded NABJ, I'm one of the founders, and so I come to an understanding even before then of the need to have some collective relationship between black journalists. Back then, there weren't many of us. There aren't that many now, but there were even a lot fewer then. And most news organizations had very few. So it was in our coming together that we found um, the ability to stand taller. We were strengthened by this the relationship that we were able to create through our organization. So yeah, early on, 1975, December.
And right here, which was I think this one was really interesting to me. It said you once led the first delegation of black columnists to White House to meet President Bill Clinton. What was the experience like, and what did you want to accomplish, and did you accomplish it by doing that?
Oh, listen, we that's the end result. That was the end result of a long series of events, but I'll just go to that end result. Yeah, we met with President Clinton, a group of black columnists. Um, most of the people in the group were local columnists. As I said, there were fewer than 10 nationally syndicated black columnists in America. Throughout my career, I was a columnist for 30 years, and no time during that 30-year period were there 10 black nationally syndicated columnists in America. At no time. And so when we went in, most of these columnists were local columnists writing about local issues. So to have this opportunity to sit with the president of the United States and to raise questions, because they were local, but they were also very smart, and they were just denied the ability to compete on that national level by decisions that were being made by their editors. And so to take them into that meeting and to have that session with him, uh, it was good for me because I had the opportunity to organize it and to lead it. But it was good for all the other people who sat at that table with me, because when they went back to their newsrooms, all of a sudden people were looking at them differently. They didn't all like the fact that they had gone there, but the smarter people in the room were asking, well, can you write something about this? Can you say something about that? Because now they wanted to be able to say, someone from our paper was in that room with the president of the United States. If you ever saw, if you've seen Hamilton, the play, one of the lines in Hamilton was that I was in the room where it happened. And being in a room where something happened is a really big deal. And we were sitting in the room. In fact, the first time we met with President Clinton, he had we were supposed to meet at something like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and the meeting didn't start until 4. And we just sat around waiting. And he came in and he apologized, and then he explained to us that he had been in a meeting with the Republican Speaker of the House of Representatives at the time, and they were having a budget debate. They were basically fighting over what the federal budget would be. Newt Gingrich was the name of the Republican House Speaker at the time, Speaker of the House. And it just dragged on. So when he came in, he could have just said, sorry for being late, but he stopped to share with us what had kept him from being on time. And some of our columnists were then able to scoop the White House correspondents because they knew more about what had taken place than the White House press corps. So it was a big deal for us. And another time we met with the president because I had been critical of him because of his treatment of Haitian refugees. He, when he ran for president in 1992, Bill Clinton, he promised as a candidate that he would end the practice of having U.S. military vessels grab boatloads of Haitian refugees in international waters, which was a violation of United Nations laws, and take them to Cuba, to Guantanamo Bay, to the piece of Cuba that the U.S. occupies, and hold them in what, in essence, were concentration camps. And I wrote a lot of columns about criticizing about that, and ultimately petitioned the Army to let me go to Guantanamo Bay to see for myself, because they said I was wrong. It wasn't a concentration camp, that they were housing them there because they needed to give them some safe place to stay, because they were in these boats that was likely to sink, and they wanted to save their lives. And we got there, and I got there, and I found out that they were kept atop. This is Guantanamo Bay is a sprawling military complex, and Cuba is an island nation in the Caribbean. A lot of foliage, a lot of trees, a lot of greenery, but they put the tents for these Haitians on top of asphalt.
Oh. And
the southernmost part of Cuba, where the temperature is always up around 100 degrees. So if you put someone on top of asphalt in 100-degree temperature inside of a big burlap tent, the temperature is 120, 125, and these people are suffering. And so I came back and I wrote about that. And I beat up on him so badly that he then said, let's get this guy in and have a conversation. But ultimately, they changed the policy. And that was something that I was very proud of, that I was able, in some small way, to influence the most powerful man in the world about his treatment of Haitian refugees.
And how about journalists today and doing something like this that you've done? Because that's just impressive. You did it because you know it was wrong and you wanted to report more, and you're writing about it, and they're saying that's not true, and you said, let me go out there and find out for myself, let me see it with my own 2 eyes. How important is seeing things with your own 2 eyes and reporting on them the way that you've been doing, like you've done it?
Well, listen, journalism starts when you get on the ground and you get to see for yourself. It starts when real reporting starts when people say, no, I'm not going to talk to you. If you think you're a journalist because you went out to a press conference and somebody handed you some notes and you got to ask some questions, you went back and wrote something, you're just a note taker. You're not a journalist. Journalism begins when people say, I'm not talking to you. I'm not going to talk to you, get away. I have nothing to say. That's when journalism starts. Too much today is the case. It is the case that people do more repeating than reporting. Yeah. So many journalists today are repeaters of news. Look at the network news even. and you find a national correspondent standing up in London telling you what happened in Beirut, or telling you what happened in some other foreign location. They weren't there. They're just repeating something that someone else told them. And so there's a lot of repeating today that passes for journalism. And we have to work very hard to challenge young people today to get out and do real journalism, to go on location. There's a guy who complains mightily about the fact that every time I go to Cuba, I don't ask questions about what they call independent journalists. Why aren't you talking to the independent journalists? And he has his own little publication, and it's called Journal Isms. And he purports to be a journalist himself. And I wonder, if that's your issue, why don't you get off your couch and get on a plane and go to Cuba and report on what you want to report on? And it's amazing that he even finds other people who will say to me, well, so-and-so said you never talk about this, or you never talk to these people. And I said, listen, there's so many stories you can find at any location. If that's the story he wants to pursue, why doesn't he go and report it? He's a repeater. He's not a reporter. We need to get away from these repeaters and get more focus on training people, encouraging people to become reporters. Have some courage and go out and do some real journalism.
Yeah, and speaking about the real journalism, how important do you think it is? Or I know it must just be off the scales, but it has to be really, really important for Black students or students at HBCU to report on Black communities. And like you said, report, not just repeating what is being said or what is out there, but reporting on it, going in there, talking to the people, finding out the why. How important is that for us young journalists right now?
Well, it's the determining factor as to whether or not you're going to be a journalist. I mean, if you're not going to do that, move on, go do something else. Don't clog up the space that real journalists can use because you somehow want to call yourself a journalist. And then some people say, well, I'm going to have my own blog and I'm going to do this. Yeah, okay. You're a repeater. Most bloggers are repeaters of news. Most of them. They don't go out and report any news. They call someone on the phone, or they read something somewhere else. They're repeaters of news. That's not journalism. And so the challenge, however, is that a lot of people who consume that information don't know the difference. And so there is, I think, a need for us to also help consumers of news and information to understand the difference between news that is reported and news that is repeated.
Yeah. And okay, so I'm assuming that you spent majority of your career just fighting for more accuracy in journalism, fighting for truth, for digging deep and getting the information. What still needs to change in media today? What's something that you've seen while you were out there reporting in your younger days that is still here today that it just needs to change? Maybe if that changed, things will be better for journalists.
So there's a lot out there in the this is a tough question. I want to make sure I answer this properly. I think we have to ensure opportunities for journalists. See, one of the things that's happening today is that the people who are pulling the strings of America today have gone on the attack and attacked diversity, equity, and inclusion. What they are attacking is the ability of people of color to engage in news gathering and dissemination. What they're attacking is the ability of people of color, through their hard work as news gatherers and disseminators, to impact the thinking of people, not just of Black people, but to impact the thinking of people. There are a lot of people in this country who are not Black, who have given good information about what is happening in this country, will have some alignment with people of color on issues of importance. But they need access to information, good information. And so that's the challenge that we have to take up. We got to get more journalists of color opportunities to work in our profession.
And how about disinformation? How about the amount of disinformation that we're seeing in the news today, in journalism overall, and the landscape of politics and all of that? How do we combat that?
That's a tough
How
one.
do you know what's real?
So I mentioned to Dr. Wilson a couple of weeks ago. Actually, I mentioned to a larger group of people, Dr. Wilson was in the group, that we really need to put forth a great effort to ensure that we add to our curriculum at universities, but also all the way back to elementary schools. Training in information literacy. Information literacy. We need to understand what the information is that we receive, from where we receive it, and how we can value it, what weight we give to it. And so until we have a good understanding of information literacy, it's going to be hard for people to choose between good journalism and stuff that's not journalism at all. So yeah, we got work to do in the profession, but also outside the profession as well.
Yeah, and to touch a little bit on Dr. Wilson, when President Wilson asked you to become a founding dean at our School of Global Journalism and Communication, you transformed it nationally, and it became an acclaimed program. What was your vision behind that? What did you want that to look like? What do you want that program to look like? And is that program looking like that, or is it building to that? How is that program for you today?
Well, there was no school, as you know, of journalism. There was no department of journalism at Morgan when I came on board. It was communication studies. It was a kind of a mix of a lot of different things. Speech was a part of it. And, so there were a lot of different components. And Dr. Wilson wanted a journalism school and asked me if I would come on board and create it. And he asked me if I would do it, if I could do it in a year. He gave me a year. So I came on board July 1 of, in July, not July 1, but in July of 2012. And the school was approved by the Maryland Higher Education Commission in May of 2013, less than a year. So he and I had a lot of conversations before I got started about what it was that we were going to build, because I didn't just build it by myself. I needed him behind me to get it done. And I said we needed a global school of journalism because we live in a global world. It is a global village that we live in. And our students need to be trained to pursue journalism as a craft across the great width and breadth of this planet. And to do it, which meant that, and I know this has not come into, I know we've created some exceptions to this, but my idea was that our students need to be bilingual. It's hard to be a global school teaching students to perform and to work their profession across the globe if we all only speak English, and when we travel, get insulted when we walk uh, Nigeria in the Lagos and go to a hotel and they don't speak English and we get upset. Or we walk into Paris at a hotel in France and they don't speak English and we get upset. Uh, we need to be bilingual, uh, um, and because, by the way, I don't know if you speak another language or not, but and I certainly don't, because I came along at the wrong time. But my daughter is fluent in Spanish, and one of the things she says to me is that, Dad, I think different in Spanish. Because she has spent so much time around Spanish speaking people, she didn't just learn the language, she learned how the language, there's a different way that people think in their language. And so there's a value to that. So we need to be bilingual. We need to, and we need to include in all of our classes some understanding of multiculturalism. Somehow it has to be a part, it has to be ingrained into all of our courses. It doesn't have to be obvious, but there ought to be something in the course as we pursue our courses that take us to a different place to understand various cultures. Um, we we need to bring, because we have limited resources at Morgan, we need to use the resources we do have to bring the world to us. Have you ever been to the global conference room?
I have.
Okay, so we have a global conference room that I created. When I got on campus, when I first got there was no room there. There was nothing there. And I said, let's turn this into a global conference room. It's not used as much as I'd like it to be used. I would like people to be lined up to use it, because you can have conversation with people in 3 or 4 different places of the world at one time. So globalism. So for instance, why does not the Spokesman have a meeting there with the student editors of the newspaper in Haiti and Jamaica and Barbados all at the same time to talk about journalism and how students are developing as journalists at these locations? I mean, there are different things you can do. You can have a conversation. Before I sent students to Berlin, and you say, you sent students to Berlin? Yeah. Before I sent some students to Berlin, we actually went to the global conference room and talked to students and professors in Berlin. And so we have to find more ways to bring the world to us in creative ways so that the students are constantly being reminded that we are a global school. We have a global agenda in terms of how we pursue our craft.
You touch a lot on global, and bringing it to us. What can we do as students or students of Global School of Journalism and Communication at Morgan, or just the professors or students? What can we do to help reach that goal that you want to see when you help to find this program? What can we do to help that? Because what do you see is missing from the students that we have now, and how can we help change that?
Yeah. So I think we need to enlarge the learning experiences of our students. Having classes in a space with walls and a roof and a floor is one thing, but having classes in that global classroom is another. Meaning, when you get to actually do your work on location in different places, I've seen it. Even students, all of a sudden they stop being students. They get excited and they start asking questions because the questions come to them naturally. They come to them naturally. They don't realize so many of us are naturally inquisitive. If you have some level of curiosity, that's the first requirement to be a journalist. And if I put you out on location, more often than not, the student who sits in a classroom, maybe a little quiet, maybe a little reticent, most of those students will step forward because now they know I'm here. I can see these things. I can talk to these people. I want to participate. And so I think it really is important as much as we can to get students out of the physical, the classroom into what we used to call this the university without walls, to get them to that university without walls.
Yeah. So you're now currently you're at Morgan. You're like the director of the Center of New Media and Strategic Initiatives and the executive producer of a Emmy-winning documentary about Morgan State.
Yeah.
An Emmy-winning documentary about Morgan State. You helped to produce. You were the executive producer of that
I
documentary.
was the producer, the director, and the writer.
And the students that you worked with,
Yeah.
how did that come about? How did you guys decide that, okay, let's do this on Morgan? And how was that process like? All the working, the attitude of the students, the hunger, was it all there? How was that?
So the project came about because Dr. Wilson asked me to do a documentary on the history of Morgan. And I have to say this. He has been very supportive in a way that is nourishing, is nurturing. He asked me to do this, and then he walked away. He didn't say, "Now do this and talk about this person or write about. Don't forget about this person." None of that. He just said, "Would you do a history of Morgan? Do a documentary about the history of Morgan?" And he walked away and let me do it. And that allowed me to let my creative juices get to flowing. And then I said, I had some student fellows who came in, and Osiatin Iyari, who is my associate producer and director of research, was a graduate student and got his master's at Morgan, and now is my right hand man in the production of our projects. We just took off running.
So that Emmy-winning program,
Yeah.
when you guys got that, what was the conversation like with President Wilson?
You mean when
when you got the award?
There wasn't much of a conversation. I mean, I think at some point he called me and congratulated me. And at that point, I told him, I said, "Well, you know, you're getting an Emmy too." He didn't know because he was a producer of the project. You see, you can be a producer. Producers have different roles. Sometimes the role of the producer is to raise the money. If you read definitions of what producers are, he was the guy who raised the money for the project. The money didn't come out of Morgan's coffers. It came out of the foundation. So there was money gifted and raised in the foundation, into the foundation, that he then was able to peel off a few dollars for us to do this project. And so he was this was a classic role of a producer, to raise the money needed to do the project. And I told him, I said, you're gonna get an Emmy too. He was shocked.
And now at our graduation next week, the 19th of December, you will be honored with honorary Doctor of Humane letters.
So I haven't. I don't get too excited. I'm not too excited about it. I really am not. I'm far more excited about we're working on a documentary about Dr. Irene Diggs. We've been working on it for 3 years. We're just struggling to find all the pieces that we need. But it's a wonderful story. I'm so excited about that and the progress we've been making recently. I am honored that the Board of Regents and the president would think enough of me to give me an honorary doctorate. But it's not even my moment. You know this, and if you don't know it now, when you're sitting in that audience in May, and there'll be someone else getting an honorary degree, you'll be saying, "Can we get past this? Because I'm waiting. My family's here, and they want me to walk across that stage. They're really not interested in this person who's getting this honorary degree. So don't take a lot of time thanking people. You know, keep it to a minute or two or three." And so I don't know what I'm going to say. And my wife said, "Have you written anything yet?" I said, "Nah, I'm not. I don't know what I'm going to say yet, but I'm not going to say much." You can tell by this conversation, I have a lot to say, but I'm not going to say much next week because it's not my moment. That moment belongs to the students and their families, and I'm not going to steal much of their time.
But while that is true, you've done so much for journalism, and what about the students of Jo- uh, Morgan State School of Global Journalism and Communication? What about us? We've seen you, witnessed you, talked to you, um, helped you out on projects, just been there and see progress and read about it and all of that. We want to hear from you too. So if you can't give the whole gist of it and the 5 minute or the 10 minute at graduation, what can you tell us right now?
So listen, I if you ask, Addis
Yeah.
Romero, you ask Addis, come to Fried Chicken Wednesday. So
You
uh,
know about fried chicken Wednesday.
she knows about it because I don't know what you do in the student dining hall, but on Wednesdays in the faculty dining room, I have what I call a fried chicken Wednesday conversation. And so when I'm on campus, which is usually about every other week, when I'm
Hmm.
on campus, I invite students to come and have fried chicken with me on Wednesdays. And we're there for an hour and a half. You'll get a lot more out of me then than you'll get out of a few words for a few minutes at commencement. But the other thing is that uh, students find me. Students who are interested, they find me, and the ones who have found me, they find that my office is open to them. My home is open to them. I had Addis and Morellis. Did you know Morellis?
Yeah.
They were guests of my family for Thanksgiving. And there are others that I've made space for in my life and I work with. So when students want to have some um, relationship with me, I'm open to it. I talk to students all the time. And there's students from as far as 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago that I'll call and ask how you doing, how's it working. Devontae King, who you don't know, Devontae graduated, I think 2014 or 2015. He's back in Detroit, and he and I were talking via email just yesterday. So the students that I have a relationship with, that I develop a relationship with, I stay in touch with. But I can't make students come to me, and I don't beg them to come to me because I know that some students they march to a different drummer, but they also have different people influencing their lives, and that's okay. Dean Jones is someone who has a lot of students who flock to her side, and rightfully so. They can learn a lot from Dean Jones. E.R. Ship, not so many, but she should have a lot more. They just think she's a mean lady, but but she's a fantastic professor, a knowledgeable journalist, just a great journalist, and well, she's no nonsense, And so there's some great people uh, in the building who probably have their own students to give some advice to.
Yeah. And before we end, do you have a space for this degree when you get it? Where are you gonna put it?
Well, ultimately, it'll probably end up down at the Enoch Pratt Free Library. I don't know if you know, but there's a collection that's just been opened at the library of my work. It's a special room called
Yeah.
the DeWayne Wickham Room, or the DeWayne Wickham Room, something like that. But I would encourage students to go down and see my work and uh, see the evidence of my career. So there are a lot. So ultimately, it'll end up down there. But I think for a while, we're going to bring it home.
Yeah. And finally, I know you must be, but I still want to ask: are you proud of that 8-year-old boy who you were way back when? Are you proud of that person?
I am very much that person. And you should interview my wife, and she'll tell you that I'm very much that person. I, you know, I think a lot about those early days in my life, and um, sometimes I'm amazed that I'm here. I'm amazed that I've gotten to where I am. For a while, for about 10, 11 years, I had a foundation called the Woodholme Foundation. And Woodholme, which is Woodholme, was the name of the country club where I would go to caddy. And so we created this foundation. A lot of my friends in Baltimore, they just came out and supported it. And we sent probably, in 10 years, we probably sent 50 or 60 kids to college. Doesn't sound like a lot, but what we did uh, to get our funding, you could only be a student who had a GPA of 2.0 or less. 2.0 or less. To qualify for that GPA with that, to qualify with that GPA for our scholarship, you had to have someone who was a teacher, a counselor, or a principal write us and make the case to us that your lack of academic ability resulted from something other than lack of your lack of academic results, your lack of a degree of something that shows you were doing well in school, resulted from something other than lack of ability or lack of effort. And the students who came to us were students whose lives had been altered like my life was altered. And we had one kid who was sitting on a porch and with his mother, and a guy walks up, I don't know if it was a husband or boyfriend, and pulled out a gun and blew his mother's brains out right in front of him. And we had kids who came from homes with drug addicted parents and all kinds of situations like that. And so the teachers would say, these kids are very smart. They just could not focus. They could not come to class, but give them a second chance. And so our program was called A Second Chance. And we guaranteed our students 1 year of college. And we said, in this 1 year of college, we will pay your full tuition. We'll pay your room and board. We'll give you $25 a week for spending money. We'll buy you clothes. At every break in the academic year, we will provide you a place to go. Each student was given two mentors, adult mentors, one female, one male. Usually they were boyfriend or girlfriend or husband and wife. And these mentors committed to talking to these students at least once a week. So you had two people calling you every week. Oh, and then and by the way, all these students went to Delaware State, because Delaware State was the only one that would take them. So we had a program to deal with them. When they got to Delaware State, we hired a senior whose job it was for that first academic year to work with them to help them get through all their courses. Now, we told them we'd only guarantee them a year. But any kid who went to the second year or third year or fourth year, we funded it. We just didn't tell them at the beginning we were going to do that.
Yeah.
And so one of our students today is an assistant dean at Johns Hopkins University. 2.0 or less coming out of high school. So I'm very proud that we do. Was parentless and poor, growing up in poverty, living in a public housing project, 2 bedrooms, 2 adults, and 6 children, 8 children, and 8 children.
That's impressive. I know I've read I don't know if you probably have read it. There was a story out in, I think, the Baltimore Banner or the Sun, saying that Morgan is crowded, and Morgan is just accepting anybody. But I think when I first came here, I had a good GPA, so I wasn't one of them. But I think when I came here, a lot of people was just like, why is Morgan accepting these 2.0 people, these people with 1.5 GPA? But I think ultimately, like, everybody deserve a chance, like you said, everybody deserve a chance. And I've seen some of those students actually turn their lives around and have high GPAs now. Like, it's possible. You
And
just have to.
they didn't get just to walk on campus because Morgan's program is like the program that they had at Delaware State then. Our kids, the semester started then in September. Our kids had to show up in May, and they had to take six, uh, four, four classes, two in the first semester of the summer, and two in the second semester of the summer, and only one 3 credit course counted toward their matriculation. And the other courses were classes were remedial, so they were classes in English or math or some other science that was high school level or lower, but it was to get them up to speed.
Yeah.
So they had to pass those classes before they could get into the regular university. And we have a program like that at Morgan. So in the summer, if you've been around, you probably know that the communication center is full of students in the summer for a period of time, and these are students who are coming into this remedial program to get the training that will allow them to actually enter the university. What is the purpose of a university if not to educate people?
Yeah.
And why would we say to people who, for lack of um, many opportunities, public schools today are disproportionately black or brown. They are largely underfunded. And so to come out of these troubled public school systems to Morgan, it should not surprise anyone that they are not, you know, uh, with the highest GPAs, not with the highest SAT scores. But but here's what impresses me: they show up at all.
Yeah.
They say, "I want an education. I want this opportunity." And um, if they present themselves that way, we ought to have a vehicle to open a door for them and give them an opportunity to show what they can do.
That's great. Thank you. But
Well,
I think you might have found something to help you with your speech next week.
I'm not talking. I'm telling you, I'll be very serious with you. I keep telling my wife this. I'm gonna 3 minutes. It's not my moment. I appreciate it, and I like And if you go back and look at other people who've been given honorary doctorates, and usually, oftentimes, Morgan will give two. They'll give one to the commencement speaker, and then
Hmm.
usually one to one other person. People don't want these. First of all, the commencement speaker has already spoken too long, and he or she gets an honorary doctorate, and then somebody else. They don't want you up there, you know, gabbing away, for 10, 15 minutes. They are ready to walk. They want to come across that stage and get their sheepskin and hold it up and present it to their families, let their families scream and yell. I'm not going to stand in the way of that.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I think I'm gonna pick you up on that offer, and in the spring semester come in for one of those fried chicken Wendy's conversations.
You're welcome to join us at any time. And when I go out there and do 2 or 3 minutes, you can tell me, I knew that's all he was going to do. If you want to want to know more, listen to this tape.
All right. Thank you so much. And you can send me when you get when you get a chance. Just send the transcript over.
Yeah, as soon as it prints out, I'll send it to you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Good talking to you. Take care.
You too.
Bye bye.